If you believe that justice doesn't need to shout to be heard, but only needs one person to stand firm in silence, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the stories that change how we see power, prejudice, and fairness. You won't want to miss a single second of this journey. Beverly Hills, Friday morning. Sunlight poured down Rodeo Drive like strands of golden silk, slipping through polished glass windows with perfect precision. Sterling Gems, a sanctuary of diamonds and power, opened its doors at exactly 10 a.m. Not a minute early, not a second late. Behind the counter stood Linda Hayes, adjusting a sapphire necklace inside the display case with gloved hands. After 31 years on the job, she had developed an almost invisible instinct: who was a real client and who clearly wasn't. The soft chime of the doorbell rang, not loud, but just enough to pierce the solemn atmosphere. A black man stepped inside, tall, composed, wearing a black turtleneck beneath a charcoal wool coat. No Gucci belt, no Italian shoes, no loud designer logos. Just a calm, polished presence, like a jazz record that didn't need lyrics. Linda looked him up and down. She didn't smile, didn't greet him. She stepped out from behind the counter, placing herself between him and the display case. Her voice was cold as stone. "We reserve our time for serious clients only." The air shifted. David Carter didn't flinch. He didn't move forward, nor did he avert his gaze. His eyes weren't angry. They were still, sharp, as if studying the first crack in a pane of glass. A silver-haired man in an Italian suit near the diamond earrings display smirked, pulled a wad of cash from his inner pocket, and said, "Money talks, my friend, but you don't look like you speak the language." He slid a crisp $100 bill toward Linda, like he was enjoying a morning play. Some customers chuckled quietly. A woman clutched her purse tighter. Linda nodded, smug. "You heard the man. This isn't a store for your kind." Silence. Dense. Cold. But David didn't retreat. He wasn't angry either. He just said 6 words, each one dropping like a sharp pebble. "You'll regret this entire morning." Linda raised an eyebrow, mocking. "Don't waste our time," she snapped. "We've had people like you before, pretending to shop. Then something ends up missing. I'm not going through that again." David didn't move. His hands rested calmly by his sides, his wallet untouched. Behind him, a security guard tapped his earpiece. "Looks like trouble. I'm keeping an eye." Then, the smug man chuckled again, louder this time. "Why don't you go back to where you came from? Clearly, this isn't it." This time, the entire store went still. A young couple turned away. An older woman cleared her throat, nervously. David didn't snap back. He whispered, deliberate, "Keep going. Dig that hole a little deeper." Linda crossed her arms and stepped forward. "If you can't prove funds, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We don't entertain walk-ins." David tilted his head, half smiling. "I didn't walk in lightly. I walked in quietly, and you mistook silence for weakness." No one laughed now. At the back of the showroom, Emily, the young associate, paused mid-motion among the engagement rings. She said nothing, but something behind her eyes had cracked open. David quietly pulled out his phone. Not the latest iPhone, not gold-plated. Just a plain matte black device. He tapped a few characters. A signal was sent. 5 miles away, in the basement of a high-rise, a woman named Olivia Brooks received one word: shadow. And the storm, born from that silence, was now in the air. Beneath the Sterling Gems boutique, 5 miles south, the control room of Carter Industries remained quiet. The glow of blue monitors reflected off the face of Olivia Brooks, Senior Director of Security. When the message shadow arrived, she didn't ask questions. One click. Sterling's surveillance system came alive. Video, audio, personnel tracking, all engaged. No alerts. No warning. Inside the boutique, no one knew they were already being watched. Linda Hayes clung to her post behind the counter, fingers tapping furiously at the POS terminal, as if keystrokes could erase the unease creeping in. Stephen Brooks, head of in-store security, received the alert in his earpiece while scanning the floor for David. "He's trying something," Stephen muttered into the mic. "Some kind of spoofing, maybe." Cut the network. Now, behind them, Emily, the young associate, stood motionless. Her eyes never left the black man in the charcoal coat. He wasn't angry. He hadn't moved. And somehow, that was what chilled her most. Suddenly, the store's ambient music cut mid-piano note. The payment terminal blinked erratically. Security cameras flickered to static. Nathan Lee, the on-call IT technician, had just returned from lunch. He stared at the diagnostics. Files were syncing, but not to Sterling's internal system. To somewhere else. Someone's accessing admin credentials, Nathan murmured. But this isn't a breach. It's coming from corporate. Meanwhile, Linda remained oblivious to the systems turning against her. She snapped at David, still clinging to her false sense of control. I've been in this business for 30 years. I know a fake when I see one. David didn't respond. He simply looked at her, like gazing through glass, watching as her grip on power quietly unraveled. At the back of the showroom, Ethan Clark, the intern, discreetly pulled out his phone and began recording. And then Linda slipped. You people always think you can stroll in here and demand respect. Emily gasped. Stephen looked away, but Linda had already said it. And David? He calmly slid the phone back in his coat pocket and exhaled. That, he said softly, is the moment everything changed. Then he turned and walked away from the counter. Not thrown out, not afraid, just one silent step, with aftershocks still to come. Back in the control room, Olivia pressed a second key. Protocol Shadow. Active. Archive all comms. Log all personnel. Begin Phase 1. Within 90 seconds, Sterling Gems, a boutique once proud of its stability and prestige, began to fracture. No shouting. No chaos. Just this quiet, chilling truth. Nothing was working the way it used to. 11:05 a.m. Sterling Gems no longer felt like a sanctuary of light. Every system flickered, like it sensed the storm that was about to strike. Behind the counter, Linda Hayes looked pale. The credit card reader froze mid-transaction with a VIP client. The screen blinked 3 times, then went dark. She clenched her jaw. We're under some kind of system attack. Lock access immediately. Do not let him back in. Stephen Brooks barked into his radio. Lock the doors. That guy doesn't come back in. He's a threat. Emily stood quietly by the sapphire case, eyes fixed on the entrance. She didn't speak, but something inside her was pounding. Not fear, hope. And then, the door opened. David Carter stepped back in. No bodyguards. No lawyers. No shouting. He simply walked, with the same quiet resolve he'd left with. Linda froze. Stephen charged toward him, finger pointed at his chest. You've been banned. Get out. Now. David didn't flinch. He reached calmly into his coat and pulled out a sleek black folder, embossed in silver. Carter Industries. His voice was low but firm. You really don't want to do this. Not when the ground beneath you is already cracking. Richard Powell, the smug silver-haired customer, let out a loud laugh. Still here? Maybe someone needs a lesson in knowing their place. Linda stepped out from behind the counter, smirking. Let's make this official. She tapped the screen. A red banner flashed. Blacklisted customer. Do not serve. There. You're permanently banned. You'll never shop here again. Richard clapped mockingly. Perfect. One less piece of trash in the industry. David didn't move. He simply said 3 words. Phase 4. Upload. In the tech room, Nathan Lee's monitor lit up like a lightning strike. Files decrypted one after another. HR reports. Bonus systems. Demographics control policy. And at the top, one glowing file. Customer tiering. Compensation by ethnicity. Intern Ethan Clark whispered in shock. Oh my God. Everything was coming out. Undeniable. Irreversible. And David Carter simply stood there, as if pulling back the curtain on the final act of a play. Emily turned to Linda, her voice clear and ice-cold. If he were white and wearing a $1,000 suit, you wouldn't have said a word. Linda snapped. Back to the stockroom. Now. Emily didn't budge. I'd rather quit. But before I go, you're standing on the wrong side of history. Outside, a CNN news crew had just arrived. Cameras switched on. The rules had changed. And this time, David Carter was the one who wrote them. Carter Industries headquarters, 62nd floor. David Carter stood before the wall of glass, gazing out over the Los Angeles skyline. In his hand was a sleek black remote, directly linked to the company's command system. "Send it," he said softly. On the other end, Olivia Brooks executed the command without hesitation. At Sterling Gems, the dominoes began to fall. A red alert flashed across the management terminal. Incoming ownership inquiry. Client D. Carter. Effective. Today. Nathan Lee froze. Ethan Clark nearly lost his footing. Emily clenched her fists. She'd been right all along. He wasn't just any customer. In Sterling's corporate command center, 60-year-old COO Michael Vaughn screamed into his phone. "What the hell is going on? Why is David Carter's video all over CNN?" No one answered. The report Ethan had leaked had just been picked up by Reuters. Investors received urgent memos detailing internal fraud and racial discrimination in employee bonus systems. Sterling's stock plunged 12% in just 20 minutes. Michael whispered in panic. "He's got someone on the inside." Back at Carter Industries, the executive boardroom was eerily silent. Olivia projected classified documents onto the central screen. Bonus payouts based on customer tiers. Internal messages urging avoidance of black clientele. Shady transactions linked to Richard Powell. David stood calm and unwavering. "We don't need an apology," he said. "We have proof." Michael Vaughn went pale. "We can still control the narrative. Suspend Linda. Place Stephen on leave." David didn't raise his voice. He just said one line. "This isn't damage control. This is reform. And it starts with consequences." By the end of the day, Linda was terminated. Stephen suspended. Sterling's Rodeo Drive store was shuttered under the excuse of emergency maintenance. Customers whispered. Employees panicked. An empire was trembling. And the man who'd once been kicked out of that boutique was now its owner. Sterling Gems headquarters, top floor, Century City. The boardroom was sealed tight. Curtains drawn. No light filtered in, except from the screen glowing with one bold, crimson message. Regulatory oversight triggered. Internal audit active. Michael Vaughn sat frozen at the head of the table. Beside him, Linda Hayes, her once flawless blonde hair now damp with sweat, muttered under her breath. "We can explain. It's just a misunderstanding." Stephen Brooks no longer looked like the stoic head of security. His hands trembled. His eyes were locked on the door, as if bracing for a storm to come crashing through it. And then, David Carter walked in. No legal team. No PR advisors. Just him, and a single black briefcase. He placed it on the table, opened it, said nothing. Michael stood, voice strained. "David, we didn't know who you were. No one told us. If we had known." David cut in, voice sharp and cold. "You don't need to know someone's name to treat them with basic human decency." Linda stood abruptly, trying to steady her voice. "I wasn't trying to discriminate. I was just following protocol." You looked me in the eye and blacklisted me," David replied. "You said nothing while a customer told me to go back where I came from. And you did it in front of your younger staff, teaching them that silence is policy." He turned to Michael. "Have you reviewed the documents? Fraud, discrimination, kickbacks, and you still think you can control this company?" Michael stammered. "We can fix this. I'll recommend Linda be suspended. Stephen placed on leave. We'll issue a formal statement." "No," David snapped. "This isn't a PR crisis. This is systemic misconduct." He turned to Stephen. "You called me a threat for being silent. You ordered the network shut down. You didn't follow protocol. You followed prejudice." Then, to Michael, "Suspend him, or I pull every dollar of my investment." Michael swallowed hard, nodded. "Stephen Brooks, suspended. Clear your office. Now." Stephen went pale. He said nothing, just walked out. Linda burst into tears. "I've been here 31 years. This company is my life. And you made it a nightmare for people like me," David said coldly. "Experience doesn't excuse exclusion, and legacy built on bias doesn't deserve to survive." He issued the final command. "Michael, terminate her contract. Now, Michael didn't dare object. He picked up the phone. HR, terminate Linda Hayes. Escort her from the building. Linda stood frozen. A single tear slid down her lips, bitter and silent. No one said goodbye. No one met her eyes. The door closed behind her, and with it, Sterling's old era came to an end. 3 months later, Rodeo Drive, once a symbol of arrogance and exclusion, now wore an entirely new face. The Sterling Gem sign had been taken down. In its place, sleek silver letters spelled, Carter Gems. No more cold glass or judgmental stares. No more scowling guards or biased employees. Only one thing remained. Welcome. Beneath a white canopy, on a bright spring morning, David Carter stood at the grand opening. No tie, no flashy speech, just quiet confidence and a clear vision. Beside him stood Emily, now Director of Equity and Training. Nathan managed the transparency systems. And Olivia Brooks, still with her black earpiece, led security and compliance with calm precision. David stepped up to the mic, his eyes scanning the crowd. We didn't just rebuild a store. We redefined luxury with respect. He looked directly into the news cameras. If you've ever been followed in a store, ignore because of how you look, made to feel like you didn't belong. Then today, this door was built for you. The ribbon was cut. Customers flowed in. No one was judged. No one was excluded. For the first time, Rodeo Drive felt like it belonged to everyone. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment where you were judged just for how you looked? Leave a comment below, because your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Thank you for watching.